Welcome to the Sober Unicorn. We are a gay-hosted, all-inclusive podcast about sobriety and addiction recovery for the LGBT plus community and all of our allies. I am your host, Holden, and thank you for joining us today. Hey everybody, it's Holden here with the Sober Unicorn. I hope everybody's doing well today. Today I am being joined by a very special guest named Mikayla.
Hey guys, what's up?
How are you doing today, Mikayla?
I'm doing very well, very blessed. How are you?
Doing fabulous. I actually went to a Pride block party with some sober people last night. It was crazy that no matter where we were going in the art district in Dallas, like we would just run into each other like pockets of sober people. And then at one point we all ended up at like 16 sober people all at one time in an area.
You
It was
know,
hilarious.
that's really amazing. I'm starting to like run into people in the sobriety community, and it's like, oh, hey, like we're actually normal ass people.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. So, if to give a little bit of a backstory, Mikayla and I actually met in a local um me 12-step meeting group. And I and somebody else, I won't say their name just in case I don't want to be talked about, but her name is M, and we kind of kicked it off pretty quickly. We've hung out a couple times outside the meetings, and Mikayla has a very unique story, and she's a badass bitch. That's all I can really say. So why don't you tell everybody kind of who you are, where you're from, and like what your drug of choice was?
Okay, cool. So again, my name is Mikayla. Um, Born and raised in Fort Worth, Texas. I'm 27 years old, and things just kind of got started out in like the rave scene. I started out pretty young, at 18, and then as things progress, like mainly it was just like doing a lot of cocaine. It was one hell of a drug, I would have to say.
That is very, very true. I mean, were you also alcoholic and coke, or was it primarily cocaine?
So something I've come to like realize throughout my stint of sobriety is even though I had a problem with cocaine, drug was the gateway. It was never, oh, I wake up and I'm like, oh, let's do some lines. It was, oh, I wake up and man, I need a drink. And that drink would make me start to feel better. And then it would be like, okay, cool. Like now it's time to party. Let's get the party started. And so, like, alcohol has always been, for me, my gateway to leading to other things throughout um, my
Addiction.
addiction. Yeah,
Yeah.
my addiction. Yeah.
And I know that for you, you're in the service industry, and it seems to be kind of like a common drug of choice is cocaine and alcohol for anybody in the service industry. I mean, do you find that those two substances are kind of prominent within that industry?
Yeah. So, my old group of friends, we were all in the service industry. And it was just like, we would start drinking at work and then be like, dude, let's go do some blow. And I think like the whole stimulant behind like blow is, man, we just had a really shitty day at work. We're really fucking tired. We want to drink, but we're so tired. We need to do something else to wake us up so we can drink till like 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning. And like, I think that's like the thing throughout the industry, like the service industry is we work so late, we work long hours, we have to deal with like customers just being dicks all the time, and we have to stimulate something so we're allowed to drink longer periods of time.
Yeah, most definitely. So, what finally led up to the point of you choosing to get sober?
Honestly, so for like 8 years I used me going to school as an excuse to justify why partying and drinking was okay. Like, no matter what I got myself into, the troubles I got myself into, it was always, hey, well, at least I'm going to college. At least I'm going to school. Like, I'm obviously not a drug addict or an alcoholic. Like, come on, I go to school. And then, like, I graduated from Tarleton in 2020. And literally the month after graduation, I was doing the same thing. And I, like, that's when, like, the unmanageable part of my life started, like, happening. And, like, that's when, like, I, like, started telling myself, like, wow, like, no, you really ain't shit. Like, you got a piece of paper that costs you $15,000 in, like, debt and stuff. And, like, that's how my life started to, like, spiral down. And I couldn't get myself out of the hole. Like, it was like, oh, I don't know what I want to do for the rest of my life. I just wasted 8 years telling myself a lie that going to school and getting my degree didn't mean I was like, I had a problem. And then, like, eventually, you know, like someone said in a meeting once, I ran out of people to lose, and I ultimately became isolated. And, like, even when I was going to the bars, I felt isolated. And it's just like, I just started doing cocaine and drinking by myself. And yeah, it just like really got to the point where I didn't want to live anymore. And Valentine's Day of this year, I actually, like, I told myself, okay, this is going to be the last drink. This is going to be the last use. But ultimately, what I was saying is, I'm going to make sure I don't wake up. And yeah, I actually, like, woke up in a bar next to a friend of mine and this guy I was hanging out with who I, like, ditched. And I was just like, well, that didn't work. And I got up and I, like, kept drinking and, like, kept using. And then like, for me, I called somebody, and, like, this was God speaking through somebody who he knew I was going to listen to. And they told me, if you just go to AA and get some help, everything's going to be okay. Because obviously, um God wasn't done with me, because uh my way of, like, trying to, like, take my own life just didn't work. So at that point I knew, like, I needed to get some fucking help, because suicide was not the answer.
Yes, I always tell people, I mean, of course, suicide is never the answer. But I mean, when it comes to failed suicide attempts, it's a huge for me and my perspective of it. And I can't speak for everybody, but that there's a reason the attempt failed.
Yeah.
Like, for one, you should never have to take your own life, nor should you want to. But I think it failed for a reason. You're here for a reason. And I think the few times, of course, seeing you in the rooms and stuff, you bring a sense of joy into the rooms, and you come in, you're happy when you do have something to say, if you get the opportunity to share. You are always positive with the outlook of whatever is going on in your life. And so, like the book states, like, we are not a glum lot. And you kind of have shown that throughout the time that I've seen you in the rooms, because you never are like self-pitying bullshit. You're never like, I mean, of course, that's in the room. So who knows what your life is outside of the room.
Yeah.
But I know that in many of our addictions, we end up lying. Like, we lie to friends, families, to ourselves. So how was your dishonesty throughout your addiction? And coming into the program, were you dishonest in the program?
um so, like through my addiction, like I said, like, I just lied to myself about the status of where I was, to justify and to make myself believe, like, I was not a drug addict and I was not an alcoholic. And, like, throughout, like, my addiction and using, like, I've been in and out of relationships since I was 14. Like, my longest relationship's like only a year and a half. And, like, throughout that, you know, I dated some people that weren't okay with me using cocaine, and or, like, even, like, smoking cigarettes. And I was really fucking good at, like, hiding it. Like, I could do it and they would never know. Like, I always had like mouthwash on me or gum on me, or like I could like, do a fat line and then I would wait like 10, 15 minutes and like they would never know. And eventually, like, it just got to the point where I like kind of had to like tell on myself because like I was like tired of like lying to them. And then like when it like just came to my parents aren't like invasive parents. They don't ask questions. And you know, like my parents would ask me like, "Are you okay?" And I'd be like, "Yeah, I'm good. Like life is good. I'm not doing anything." And like just wearing the mask of like going to school was such an easy mask to like hide behind and like lie to everyone. And then like just like throughout sobriety, like I'm really open and honest about my recovery. Like I'm not ashamed that I'm in recovery because I am no longer that person. And like some people say, like it's like a living amends. Like for me, like I don't have a lot of amends to make, but like my only amend is a living amend, and to like just be open and honest with myself and with like others around me, because you never know who like you're gonna help out and stuff like that. And yeah, just a living amends, and just to like be honest with myself, like, hey, you can't just have like one drink and stuff like that. But in the beginning of my sobriety, hearing other people's stories in the room, I started to question on whether or not I was really a drug addict or an alcoholic. And I kind of started to tell myself, like, oh, dude, like, you didn't have to wake up and have a drink to feel better all the time, or you could go days or weeks without drinking. Like, you're not an alcoholic. And I started to get back in that lie of, oh, yeah, you're probably not a drug addict, or you're probably not an alcoholic. And, I had those thoughts of like, maybe I can just go hang out with my friends and have a couple drinks. And that was like a vicious cycle for like the first 2 months of my sobriety. And then I found myself really depressed and just sad, and I wasn't like doing anything. And like people talk about having to like work the program and like rigorous honesty. And like finally I was like, dude, you have to stop. Like this is a life or death disease. You have to stop lying to yourself. And I think that's when I finally like decided to get a sponsor and be like, yo, I need help. Like I am an alcoholic and I do have issues with like using drugs, and my life is truly unmanageable. And like that's how like I've like transformed from the beginning of my sobriety to like now, is like stopping the lies, because the lies are only going to get me back into the bars.
Yeah, I mean, there was so many times now that I'm sober, of course. Well, in my addiction, I never really thought about it, but I was lying to family members, roommates. I mean, everything. Where my roommate the following day, I'd be in a blackout, driving home, and he's like, "Damn, you were fucked up last night." And I'm like, "No, I only had like two drinks." When in reality, I spent $175 for myself at the bar,
Yeah.
um, and then a full blackout, coming home at 7 a.m. Like, who does that sober? Um, my mom like leaving work on a daily basis. Where are you headed? Oh, I'm just gonna go home and probably get some rest. Is like I'm sitting in the parking lot of the bar. And the
Yeah.
following day, she's just like, "So what'd you do last night?" Oh, I just had like a drink and then went to bed. Like it's like even in the program, I would say I lied a little bit at the beginning. Um, because I'm one of those people that like I have to overachieve on everything I do in my life. And so when it came to like step three, I was like, oh, of course I handed things over to God, even though I was like, nah, fuck that fool. And when it came to step four too, like it took me 24 hours to write me step four. And it was step four actually was I think the turning point of my honesty, because there was things that I held back from that I was like, I don't care who the hell this sponsor thinks he is, but he cannot know this certain information about me. because I mean, this shit could put me in jail.
Yeah.
And it finally came to a point where like that individual shared some stuff about them that I was like, okay, this if they're willing to entrust me with this information, then I should be able to do the same and show some type of vulnerability. And for me to share that for myself was like, okay, you are truly dedicated to this, like
Yeah.
dedicated to the program. And I compared myself to everybody in the program, especially I was a high bottom drunk, I would say. Yeah, I mean, I put myself like $18,000. No, sorry, 15,000 in debt, but I was spending about 18,000 a year in my drinking stages. But like, I like didn't go to rehab. I never got into legal trouble. And when I hear these people like, oh, I was blacked out, woke up in an alley with my pants down, or like, I never had to do any of that. I was on Grinder with my pants down. And it's I think that comparing yourself to others is a way to lie to yourself and to tell yourself that, oh, I must not be an alcoholic or an addict because I'm not as bad as that bitch or I'm not as bad as that person. But we all have different ways that we choose to live in our addiction. Some of us go so deep that we were willing to give up our job. Other of us is like, nah, we need to keep our job to buy us some more drugs. Um, so I lied to myself for so long, saying like, nah, like I'm not really an alcoholic. I'll just do this whole AA thing to get me to quit drinking, and like I'll be out this hoe in like 6 months time. I'll be done with AA, and I'll be off the liquor, and I'll be Gucci. And like, boy, was I totally fucking wrong, because throughout the program I've learned that I've lied to myself, lied to other people, that I was further in my addiction than I realized, and that I was a user. I was a really shitty human being during my addiction. So I had quite a few amends to make when it came to people, but I made those amends and it was a mess. But it was a blessing in disguise, and many of those people understood where I was coming from. You're listening to The Sober Unicorn. We'll be right back after this short break. This episode is brought to you by Von Shine Creatives at handmadeandgreat.com. Von Shine Creatives is a sober owned business featuring finely crafted goat's milk and vegan soaps. Treat yourself or someone you love today. Take $5 off of $25 on all your purchases site wide, and remember, it's always free shipping. Use the coupon code SOBER, which helps support Von Shine Creatives and the Sober Unicorn podcast all at once. Link and coupon code will be in the bio. Now back to our episode.
Yeah, like for me it took me like a month and a half to get to step 4 because I was like, I think the last 3 years of my addiction was like, you know, slowly becoming isolated, and like I finally like kind of like took a look and like was like, why am I so lonely? Like why am I alone right now? And then the realization hit like, man, because you were a bitch to people. You thought you were better than everybody else. And because people didn't want to live life the way you lived it, or like better their life and get an education and stuff like that, like I like drove everyone away. And, I'm a very like giving person, but I think eventually my giving wasn't to be selfless, it was to be selfish.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm going to do this for you, and oh, I don't expect anything, but in reality I expected you to like give me your time and your presence, and if you didn't do that for me, I was going to let you know. And drunk Mikayla has no filter. I'm going to tear you down so bad because I think like I am such a great person and shit like that. And then like I just came through all this realization, and like I started accepting these things about myself. Like, okay, this is why I'm lonely, and this is why this is this way. And then when it came to step 4, I was like, I don't have any resentments. Like, I've already accepted all this thing and everything is all fine and dandy. And like, I didn't even like talk to my sponsor really for that month and a half. And she finally was like, hey, so what's up with your step 4? And I was like, oh yeah, I'm doing it. I'm doing it. We'll meet next week. And then the week would come and I would be like, oh, I'm just not feeling good, or oh, I'm just sad. Like, we can meet another time. And it just like kept pushing it back and pushing it back. And then finally I was like, I sat down and I started, like, I wrote the very first one, which was like my mom. And I wrote it out and then I was like, okay. And then boom, another name went down, and boom, another name went down, and boom, another name went down. And then like people, places, and things. And after a while, I had 3 pages of like resentments and stuff like that. And I was like, man, it's so easy to tell myself that these things aren't going on and to like live this lie of like everything's okay. But in reality, it's not okay. And it's okay to not be okay, but let's do something about it.
Mm-hmm.
Let's not tell ourselves that it's okay and just move on from it. Because I think that's what kept me in my addiction for so long, is I would tell myself that I'm okay, that I got this, and just move on from it and never deal with it. And then the evil cycle of, okay, I'm going to try to get sober. Oh, I'm not going to drink. Oh, I didn't drink for 3 days. Dude, I don't have a problem. Let's go to the bar. And then boom, another month and a half or so of like deep, deep drinking and using and waking up and not knowing like what happened or what I had done. And like, it's just crazy to realize that even the smallest lie can take you back like 1,000 steps.
It's hilarious how we can know that we have an issue drinking, stop drinking for 2 to 3 days, and then celebrate with the drink because we think and feel that we accomplished something.
Yeah.
And you're like, bitch, 3 days is not an accomplishment. I mean, well, you know what? I digress that comment because depending on your addiction, if you can go 3 days without heroin, meth, like that is a huge accomplishment.
Yeah.
But I mean, for me, like, yeah, 3 days for me was not an accomplishment. I mean, hell, I'm coming up on 8 months of sobriety, and I still don't feel incredibly accomplished. Yes, I know that 8 months is a long time, but it's like hell. Like, I can't wait till my sobriety journey is longer than my drunkenness and my addiction. Then I'm like, okay, I accomplished something. I've been sober longer than I was a drunk heifer. Um, so beyond lying, of course, in the program we talk about rigorous honesty. How
Yeah.
important of it was being rigorously honest, and how did that impact like your program?
Um, Honesty. You know, like a lot of people say, I thought I was an honest person, but like I wasn't. Like, just like my whole life is circled around relationships. Like, I don't have a big family, and then like it's just like me, my mom, my dad, and my 2 brothers really. And even at that, like, we're not a close family. So like I was just always in relationships, and like I couldn't even like be honest about like my drinking. It'd be like, you know, get off work, say I'm still at work, and go have a couple drinks, and then get home and like, have you had a drink? No, I haven't had a drink. I'm just tired. Like, I got my ass kicked at work today. And just like little lies like that, like they add up. And then, you start having to like remember what you said, and then you have to start keeping up with that lie to keep up with another lie. And that is just so much effort. Like, it is extremely like surreal how much honesty, even if it fucking hurts, is so much easier than telling a lie one after another after another. I had an incident where an old coworker of mine, He just moved back to town, and we used to drink and go out after work or whatever. And he was like, we should like hang out after work, go have a drink. And I was like, actually, I'm in AA, I'm in recovery. And he was like, what? And I was like, yeah, dude, but it's like been the best decision of my life. Like I never would have thought like I would have needed AA and help like to get out of the shit I was in. And he came like just like this past Sunday or whatever. And he was sitting at the bar, and he comes in and he has two drinks, two vodka sodas. And I was just like, I think it is absolutely incredible how you can just sit here and have two drinks. Like, I don't understand, but I give you props. And he was like, why don't you come out with me and let's try some controlled drinking? And I just laughed so hard, and I was like, you know, that doesn't work for me. I cannot go have two drinks. And even though I want to tell myself so bad that yes, I can have two drinks, it's not possible. It's not going to happen. And today I'm okay with that. And I just like immediately felt so like I was shocked by my answer. Like it felt so good to just be open and honest at the fact that I know that if I would probably empty out my bank account because I haven't drank in so long, that one drink would lead to 20, and then that would lead to me figuring out a way to find my plug to get some blow. And like my plug would be like, yo, I haven't heard from you in like forever, like here's a gram plus another half, like yo. And like it would just start a downward spiral. Like I feel like my past and the people I would hang out with would be so excited that I was at the bar and shit like that, that they would like want to get me so fucking drunk. And like that's how easy it could be if I like told myself like, yeah, dude, let's just go have two drinks. Like that is the importance of being rigorously honest through sobriety, and then just like through life. Like my sponsor told me about setting emotional boundaries, because I don't think I've ever known like what boundaries are. I heard a term the other day called like a U-Haul lesbian. And I had never heard that before. And someone explained it to me, and I was like, damn, I'm a U-Haul lesbian. Like I met you one day, I'm telling you I love you 3 days later, and we're in a relationship like we've been together for like a year and a half. And now I'm having to like set boundaries because like I met somebody, she's super cool, she grew up in Al-Anon, so she's like really understanding of like my recovery and stuff. And she like came at me and she was like, have you told your sponsor about me or anything? And I was like, no. I was like, I don't really want to. And she was like, well, you need to go talk to your sponsor. And I was like, okay. And so like I got on the phone with my sponsor, and I could feel myself like holding back on the truth of what was like happening. Like, oh, she's just a friend. And then I was like, okay, look, I have a crush on this chick, and I don't really know like what to do about it. And she was like, you have to set boundaries. Like, you have to be honest with yourself about where you are in your recovery and whether or not, if this didn't work out with this person, are you going to be okay? Because this person is not probably going to go drink and ruin their life, you know, because things didn't work out. But like, would you go drink and ruin your life because things didn't work out? And I had to sit on that and like really, really ponder on the fact, like, you know, maybe I should like set emotional boundaries and set boundaries for myself more so, because I know that I am codependent. and I've been codependent my entire life. And like, if I went all in on this and this shit didn't work out, yeah, I probably would go drink over it, because that's the only thing I know how to do coming out of a relationship, is to go get drunk and mask my feelings with alcohol and then eventually use.
The only great thing with the person being raised with an Al-Anon program, and if anybody doesn't know, the Al-Anon program is the sister of AA, and it's more for the people that feel that they need to help the alcoholic consistently and will ruin their own life just to be there and fix the alcoholic. But you setting boundaries and everything like that, I mean, you can date this person, set certain boundaries, and they will fully understand why you're needing to set those boundaries and support it. The thing is, with her being an Al-Anon, she's not going to be this judgmental lesbian and be like, "Ugh, how dare you set these boundaries of no sex, no this, no that, no calling girlfriend until 6 months of dating, so on and so forth." But it may be, and she'll just be like, you know what, I respect that, and I like you enough to work and go on this journey with you. Because I mean, ultimately, the partner that you find, whether they're program or non-program, it's still a journey that they're going on with you. Um, because like I recently started dating somebody, and they're a muggle or a normie. I call them muggles because we're wizards in the AA world. And even though he doesn't fully grasp the concept of addiction, just because he's never had to deal with that, he's in full support. Like I had to tell him, like, oh, I'm sorry, I can't hang out with you this evening because I need to hit a meeting. It's been like a week and a half, or I'm actually going to a party with him today. And he was like, it's a house party. So he's like, hey, like, I know you don't drink. There's going to be alcohol there if that's okay. And he's like, do you want me to pick up anything from the store non alcoholic that you would prefer to drink? And it's like, even though he doesn't understand what I went through, he is still in 100% support of what I'm doing in my sobriety. When I told him I was going to a Pride block party last night, he's like, you better not drink. I'm like, girl, I'm gonna be with all these sober people. Like, I can't. Even if I wanted to. It was so sad. So we go to Pride, the block party. Um, Apparently the gay community is not sponsored by Absolute Vodka anymore. They're sponsored by Stoli Vodka now, and they give us a free drink ticket to get a free drink. And of course, we go to the bar. I'm like, I just need water. And I was like, oh, well, do you have any water? And he's like, no, no water. I'm like, and me and my friend was like, well, my friend Kevin, we're like, well, we don't drink. And he's like, well, how about some ginger beer? Which, of course, non alcoholic. So we're like, okay, cool. And the guy was so kind of understanding. He was like, you know what? He's like, if y'all need any refills, he's like, I have plenty of ginger beer for you guys. He's like, just come back and I'll give it to you completely for free. And so, even though people in the muggle community may not understand wizardry and stuff and alcoholism, like they just need to be supportive. Just understand. I mean, not need to ask us why, not need to go like your friends with, oh, let's try some controlled drinking. That's like, to me personally, that's like the most disrespectful thing a person can say to somebody in recovery.
Like, what the fuck, dude?
It's so true. But I mean, again, it's a different world, and I think you being rigorously honest and telling them like, hey, that does not work for me. That's not how it works. Like either it puts a bug in their ear of like maybe just to ask more questions. I prefer you ask me 10 questions about what I went through in my recovery rather than say, oh, girl, you can just drink. All it takes is some willpower. Yeah, that's part of it, but not all of it. Because trust me, I willpower or not, I was still slamming like 25 shots a night.
Yeah.
So
This guy asked me, he was like, so like, is this just gonna be like the rest of your life? Like, you're just not gonna drink? And I was like, you know, I don't know what the rest of my life is gonna be like, but for right now, today, like, yeah, man, I'm just not gonna drink. And I'm okay with that. Like, it's cool to get to a spot in sobriety where it's okay and I'm okay with not drinking. Like, you do what you want to do, good for you that you can just have 2 drinks. That's awesome. But like, I'm good without drinking. And, something I realized is like life's not over.
Mm-hmm.
There's so many things that you can do that doesn't involve drinking. Like, I went bowling the other day, and the last time I was at this bowling alley, we got there an hour before close, and like I couldn't even enjoy bowling because I was so focused on how many drinks I could get before the bar closed. And now I went bowling, and like I went with another person in from my home group, and we played 7 games of bowling. Like, what the fuck? We were done, and I was like, dude, we just played 7 games. Like, that is wild. And I didn't even think once about drinking. I drank a big ass cup of Mountain Dew, which I probably shouldn't have drank all of that because I felt like I was cracked out. But but like, I thoroughly enjoyed myself because I got to just bowl and have fun and not worried about when my next drink was going to come or how much time I had to drink before the bar closed.
Exactly. So we're coming to the end of the episode. So is there anything that you would like to share with everybody that you haven't shared already?
You know, recovery is hard, especially when, your stint of addiction was so long. And it's like something that's all you've known is how to drink and party. And a lot of people say, it gets worse before it gets better. But uh, a friend from my church was struggling, and she sent me this quote saying, and she was like, addiction is giving up everything for one thing, and recovery is giving up one thing for everything. And that statement couldn't be more true in my life today. Um, I rely heavily on God for my sobriety. Like, AA is my foundation. It is what got me straightened out and like settled in life. And now, I turn to my God of my understanding for everything. And the amount of doors that opened up when I shut just that one door is unimaginable. And like, I'm just like forever like grateful that, I got another chance at life. And like a lot of people say in the meetings, like, just keep coming back because that miracle is going to happen. It might take you longer than it took me or whatever. I only got 4 months of sobriety, and like my life has completely took a 180. But like, if you're like struggling with your addiction or you're struggling through your sobriety, I know it's cliche, keep coming back, but it's true. Just keep coming back, keep going to the meetings, like just keep continuing to do that next right thing, and that miracle's gonna happen. It's gonna happen.
Well, that is very well said, Mikayla. Thank you so much for joining us today. Hope you have an incredible day and a good rest of your weekend.
I appreciate that. And I appreciate you letting me come on your podcast and speak some truth about AA and addiction and recovery.
Thank you again for listening to today's episode. Hit that follow button to be notified about new episodes every week. If you'd like to reach out to us, you can find us on Instagram at The Sober Unicorn Podcast or on our website at thesoberunicornpodcast.com. There you will find our episodes as well as our very own sober-owned shop featuring products from small businesses that are sober-owned. And remember everyone, don't be normal, be a unicorn, but better yet, be a sober unicorn.